Today we're going to discuss, they're going to share best practices in how to prepare for buyer meetings, how to execute buyer meetings, and then how to follow up from those buyer meetings, all based on their experiences here and outside of ECRM sessions. And they're also going to talk about how to support sales of your products once they're already on the shelves, right? Because our goal is not just to get our products on the shelves, you want to get them off the shelves and into consumers' baskets, right? So that's another important piece. So while we're doing the presentation, again, like Rogi, I'm happy with you jumping in, asking questions at any time throughout the presentation. So with that, we're going to get started. And to start things off, since you have the mic, we'll start with you. Just give a little overview about your company, your origin, and how you've grown over the past few years, including the line of products. And I know they're over there, so they'll have to hold it up.
Perfect. Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
No? Beautiful. Before I begin, I just want to thank you, Joe, and the entire ECRM group for allowing me to speak here. It's an honor. It's an honor to be next to this guy also. Jack Savdie, Senior Vice President and owner of Global Beauty Care. We are a skincare wholesaler based in New York City that specializes in makeup removal wipes, serums, cleansers, oils, facial masks, under-eye pads, pimple patches, anything that you would find in the skincare aisle at your local CVS. As Joe mentioned, we are a family-owned company. I have an older brother who works in production and design. My younger brother works in the warehouse and handles the shipping, the receiving, all the logistics of the company. And I handle all of sales. We each have a quality that the other brother doesn't have. So my older brother, for example, he thinks outside the box. He's very creative, so naturally he designs this beautiful looking product. My younger brother's in the warehouse. I personally hate warehouses. I'm a little OCD. I don't like dust. I don't like grease. So he's in the warehouse, and I guess I walk the walk and talk the talk. So naturally, I'm in sales. Yet we all work seamlessly to achieve the same job, and that is to deliver outstanding product at an excellent price. We founded the company in 2011. Believe it or not, in my parents' basement. Today, with a lot of hard work, an incredible team, a lot of luck from above, we now do around, I would say, $100 million at retail sales. Pretty much it. We sell to all food, drug, and mass customers, so that's your Walmarts, your HEBs, Kroger, Safeway, Albertsons, your Dollar Generals. We do an off-price business, very large off-price business. That's your TJ Maxx's, your Burlington's, your Ross. We have an international arm. You can find our products in Indonesia, Australia, UK, all over Canada, South America, Mexico, many other countries. And we also do a huge dollar business as well here in the States. Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Family Dollar. So thank God it's been a...
Yeah, he's won a few large shows for us as well. And one more question. When you first launched, when the company first launched, how many products did you have?
Three SKUs. Today we have close to 600 SKUs.
And we're going to get into kind of what led to him choosing which areas to get into it a little bit. All right, well, Osman, same question. Give us the laydown, the origin story.
Well, we were founded, we started the business in 2010, December 2010. We actually took over a small beauty care brand that was going out of business. And we took over for a brand called Clear Fast. We were already a beauty care distributor of other products in the market. So we went door to door at that moment. And in December 2010, as we took over this company, we got into the world of manufacturing. As we entered into the manufacturing world, we realized there was a big market gap for naturals. So being that there was a gap, we kind of focused on the healthier choice products in the market, being natural butters, natural oils, and we focused on keeping all the production in-house. We focused on having direct relationships with our ingredient suppliers, whether if it's a front-end or the direct supplier. We focus on that direct relationship per store. So we didn't just come to the big events and try to fish out the big retailers. We started from going door to door, trying to meet family-owned businesses and engaging on that level. And being a family-owned business, it's my father, mother, myself, three family members, but really the core business is run from our team members. And over the years, as we developed the brand, the company, we noticed that managing and allowing the team to develop and create the vision of the brand and the culture we've built over the years has allowed for our success.
Awesome. And the kids are involved too. I see them running around the warehouse.
Well,
Playing on
yes,
these robotic
kids are
pallets.
always Kids
They have some really cool robotic pallets in the warehouse, so he puts a lot of videos of them up on his social media. So, all right, so we're gonna get into the first area, prep, right? So, there's nothing that irks buyers more than a brand going into a meeting not prepared to meet with them. So we're gonna dive into a little bit on how they prep for it. So, since you left off, what's your approach to preparing, whether it's a meeting that you have here or one that you set up on your own? What's your approach to preparing for it?
Well, as the years have gone on, it's kind of evolved. At the beginning, we went very formal. We had presentations, we had statistical data. If I had Nielsen or IRI at the time, I was showing that. But as the years have gone on and we've met a lot of these companies, retailers, the buyers again, it's become a little bit more informal. Yes, I have that all available. I have that all attached. But it becomes more of that re-engagement or the continuation of the last email or last call or where you left off on. Because typically most of these retailer buyers, they're out here, or distributor buyers are out here looking for innovative products. They're looking to solve a solution for their customers. So with us being a manufacturer, we're always ears. We're always trying to figure out what's the next step. So sometimes, like I said, we come in with a meeting notes, presentation, or sometimes we just come in and say, hey, how's it going? How's the family doing? Because we've built that relationship.
Yeah.
Some of them we have current business relationship going, some of them not yet. But we know that it's semi-informal because really at the end of it, we're trying to understand, hear what's new out there. Instead of having a presentation for every meeting, we kind of dictate it off engaging from the buyer at the beginning.
Okay. If it's a buyer you've never met before, right? Because again, he brings up a good point, and we are going to dive into this a little bit more when we talk about the execution of the buyer meeting. But there is a difference if you're the first time, if you're new and you're meeting buyers for the first time versus whether you have the established relationship. When you go into the meeting, it's different kinds of conversations. So if you're meeting someone for the first time,
yes.
What kind of research do you do on that?
Oh yeah, well I definitely read the meeting notes, the pre-notes, because that's available on your website for each meeting.
He's talking about the prep site, so if you're not familiar with the ECRM prep site, it's on the ECRM portal. We put all the buyers, we put all the information about what the buyers are looking for, their focus, who they are, linked to that company, so you have everything. That's a great place to start, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I try to connect with them if they have their social media, their LinkedIn, I try to connect there, at least link up with them. Some of them, if there's a opportunity I feel that's great for both sides, I will reach out prior to the meeting, saying, depending on what that might be, but basically saying, hey, I see our upcoming meeting, excited to finally meet. Sometimes I ask them, do they want to have some samples pre-sent? And sometimes it's just like, hey, just want to let you know we'll be out there and happy to meet. Because that simple email will have them, hey, they'll probably look you up,
Yeah.
see who you are, what company, what brand. But there's various approaches, obviously, depending.
Yeah, and they're probably familiar with you already from your ads plastered all over the trade magazines, both of you guys. So, so Jack, same thing. First time meeting a particular buyer.
So I like to stalk my buyers in the beginning. Like Osman mentioned, social media. What I like to do is go on LinkedIn, see who they're friends with. If they're friends with any of my friends or anybody that I know, I'll give them a call. Hey, do you know this buyer? And have a meeting with them. What can you tell me about them? If not, I get to see their pictures. I had a buyer once that it was easy to tell that she was an avid skier, and it just so happened that a week before our meeting, I happened to be skiing in Vail. So in the meeting, I said, oh, my legs are killing me. I just got back from Colorado skiing. Oh, you ski, I ski. And then we just started chit-chatting like that, and that was our icebreaker. So I like to do all the research. Of course, like you mentioned, I like to see what it says on the ECRM website. I like to see their social media. I like to see their LinkedIn, see if they worked at a previous company that I know people, and you never know. So.
Excellent. They both bring up, both of them, as you noticed, brought up LinkedIn. So of the brands that are here, raise your hand if you're on LinkedIn. Good. You should be, because a lot of buyers are on LinkedIn. And The other thing that they brought up that's important is also focusing on the personal side of it, right? Because it's still, we're doing business with people, right? And you want to know, it's good to build those relationships. So soft skills matter in these meetings. And whenever you're not the only one that's brought up things like that. There was another buyer another brand that I interviewed a little while ago that did the same thing. He would look for the buyers, he'd reach out to his friends and say, hey, listen, do you know this buyer? What do they like? What kind of, what would be best in a conversation with them? And I've spoken to buyers and they do, obviously you don't want to, if you got 10 minutes, you don't want to spend 8 minutes talking about skiing. But as a lead-in, they do like when you can relate. One buyer from, I think it was Associated Grocers of New England, spoke with her about soft skills and the importance of them. And she mentioned that somebody noticed her college shirt. She was wearing a hoodie with her college, and they, so they brought something up about that. And the thing is, she had 90 meetings that week. She remembered that person just because of that. So anything that you could do to make that personal connection, any research that you could do that will help grease the skids on making that personal connection is really important. What about store visits? What is the value of store visits in advance of the meeting, if you could do them?
So we call it BAMLR in our company. That stands for budgets are made or lost at retail. It is incredibly important to store shop before you meet with any buyer. It's actually a cardinal rule of mine to always store shop before you meet with a buyer. If you can't, for whatever reason, they're in another state, they're in another country, believe it or not, on YouTube now, you could just type in a retailer's name and you'll see somebody with their camera. I was watching a video 2 days ago, 1 hour long, of someone going to a store like this that I'm going to see in London. I never got a chance, but I called on them and they granted me a meeting.
That's great. That's a great hack.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So, and there's a lot of that out there?
Tons out there. So it's very important that you store shop. And when you do store shop, it's important to know what you're looking for. So for example, your objective is to find white space on the buyer shelves. You need to study who they're currently carrying, what their retails are, who they're buying from. This way you get a sense of your product and how you can differentiate from what they currently have.
Gotcha, and that's a great idea, that YouTube one, because obviously you may not be able to get out to physically visit stores of all the buyers. Maybe you're in the Pacific Northwest and you're meeting with a Southeastern grocery chain or something, and it's not convenient to go there. So you can find, it's amazing what you can find online and on Google and YouTube. So what about you? Do store visits, especially in the beginning?
Definitely. I mean, regardless of if I know I'm going to meet them now, when I'm up and about in my trips and my daily life, I definitely enter different retailers. I take pictures of my categories that I sell into, and I keep that. Google's great. It's going to save the photos. It'll save my location. Just go back. They'll definitely be within ECRM's shows. There's definitely going to be that retailer at this show at some point. So regardless of who you're thinking, if they're a big retailer, they'll be here.
Yeah. What do you look for when you're going through a store in the prep mode?
So there are several things. Some I try to determine, are they doing their direct planogram? Are they buying direct? So there are different distributors in the market that fulfill a lot of sets for retailers, depending what category you sell into. So I try to get first off good imagery to understand what price points, what varieties they have, because the retailers will have different planograms depending on that neighborhood, that community, that demographic. So it's important to understand what they're working with, what they have, find the white space, find the void, and find what we bring as a brand that could bring value. Sometimes that's better margins, because guess what? The same Unilever, Procter & Gamble price point in different markets will be similar. Same like a lot of your competitors, they're going to be very similar. So you might be able to find white space in margins, and maybe some call out, some keywords, something about the local demographic groups, because you know what? There's never an item that can fulfill everybody's needs. So you've got to make sure to highlight what you have on yours that can fulfill that need for that buyer.
Gotcha. What about you? What do you look for?
Same thing.
Yes.
Check me that way. Just to give you an idea. So our main commodity is makeup removal wipes. How do you differentiate from your competition? It's just the white, right? Our claim to fame are three things. We design very upscale, so the item looks a lot more expensive than it actually costs. Our packaging, so we put a here. This was a bad example. Let me have that guy. Boom.
We packed it really well.
Thank you. Hard to tell, but there's a box in here, so it's a box within a box. So it's packaged like a cologne bottle, so it's indestructible. A lot of retailers now with theft and whatnot, they want your packaging to be sturdy. So we designed very upscale, and the quality, I'll just show you this. I mean, it's hard to tell, but this is a 65 GSM cross-woven white. Neutrogena, who's obviously the number one in the category, is, I would say, about a 45 GSM white. This is 65, so it's a very strong white. It's like wiping your face with a towel. We receive emails to our office, I kid you not, probably weekly, if not bi-weekly, of customers saying, I've been a Neutrogena fan for 30 years. I found your wipes at my local TJ Maxx and I'm a fan for life. So we differentiate similar to him, where pricing,
Okay.
we're definitely, I don't want to say the cheapest in the market, and I don't even like using that word cheap, but when it comes to pricing, we can't be beat. When it comes to quality, we can't be beat, and that is our white space. We are the affordable skincare brand, and we offer it to the masses.
So you're basically both hunting for that white space whenever
Yes.
you're visiting a store. Okay, we'll wrap up the prep side with, let's see, give us a checklist, like top 3 things, we'll start with you, that brands should be prepared to answer when meeting with a buyer.
You first.
All right.
You're gonna get a lot of the basic, especially if you're new to this program. You gotta understand little simple keywords, EDI, right? FOB, collect, pre-break. Just understand basic shipping, logistic terms, relationship terms, payment terms. You'll be asked that. All of us at the beginning, sometimes we're not aware, sometimes we are. Whoever knows, great. So just know your business, know where you could be as far as you don't want to come to this meeting and they ask you a question. Can I get to a certain price point? Can we get delivered this? You at least want to give answers. You know, if you don't know exactly, you need to be prepared enough to give an adequate answer where the buyer feels like they walked away with something. You don't want to say, I'll get back to you, because then they'll feel like you don't know. And most importantly is really understand that relationship and ask what their void is and try to understand and approach it like that, you know, because there's so many angles to every meeting, so many angles of prepare, and some of that is listed in the prep site, so you'll see their objectives, a lot of their things are there, so you'll be surprised, most of the buyers are listed, this is what I'm looking for, but yet, as you start your meeting, you ask them.
Okay. Notice I only asked for 3 things. All right, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah. Similar to what he said, you should know your customer inside and out, not just your business, but their business as well. It should be obvious that you know your business inside and out, but you need to know theirs as well. So when I met with Walmart years ago, for example, Walmart's website is called Retail Link. So when I sat with the buyer, I was dropping Walmart terms such as Retail Link, Gemroy, OTIF, which is on time in full. When you speak their language, it shows them that you know exactly what you're talking about. You understand not only your business, but their business as well. And you know, you're not gonna be a pain in the butt vendor like some other guys are that keep asking how do you do this and how do you do that. You come in prepared.
Actually, that's a good point, that research and speaking their language. I wanted to add one thing to that. As a former journalist, read their press releases too.
Oh yes.
Because the retailer is going to brag in their press releases. So all the things that are really important to them at that moment is going to be in their recent press releases. So make sure you're aware of all of that too as you're going in. And again, like they both said, we have a lot of this. We point you in that direction on the prep site on the ECRM portal. One last thing. When you were first starting out, did you rehearse your pitch? Did you role play your pitch? And how often did you do that?
I was always selling at some point, and I was going
All
door
right,
to
so
door. I
that's
didn't really have to do
part of it.
anything. I just kept flowing with it, to be honest. If you came in here not being a salesperson, hopefully, you know, you just gotta have confidence in what you're selling. Know your product, you know. But that was it. I kind of just evolved in what I was.
And why don't I have a feeling the same goes for you too? Right?
Yeah, when you're a salesman, you could sell anything, really. That's just how it is. But what Osman said, he's definitely, you need to look sharp, and for lack of a better word, you need to know your shit inside out.
Yeah.
If you're a buyer, I always like to play devil's advocate, so I put myself in their shoes. And if I'm a buyer, do I want to buy from some guy that has his shoelaces untied and looks like a schluck, or someone that shows up in my office, looking like $1 million and speaking my language?
Yeah.
So.
Excellent, excellent. So now we're going to move into the buyer meeting itself. And I think, like you touched on this before, it's a little different when you're meeting with someone you've already met with a bunch of times versus somebody that you're meeting for the first time. But, let's start off with the opening. Opening. Buyer walks in, how do you launch into the conversation? And if there's a contrast between somebody you already know and a buyer for the first time, point that out.
I think it depends on your surroundings. So for example, this particular show, we have a beautiful boardroom where we have 10-foot windows, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, and they walk in and right away they say, wow, this is the nicest room we've been. And then you just play over that. And they actually do the icebreaker for you. Then you start speaking about that, and then they'll say, yeah, we've been into rooms that don't have much light, because we all know a lot of these hotel rooms don't have lighting. We actually bring our own lighting at every show. That's actually thanks to Eric right here. Eric went on Amazon, bought strip lights, we put them on the table, and it brightens everything up. That's a great, I would say if I had to give advice, that would be my number one thing, bright lights.
Yeah, lights can make a difference. The way they do it, actually, there's a video with me and Jack on the ECRM website where he goes into it, and he actually shows how they use the lighting in the room, and both of them actually have set up their rooms nice. Even though it's not like a trade show, we are trying to attract people, we're already sending the buyers to you, but still, if you have a wow factor, right, you want, again, like I mentioned before, these buyers are meeting with 60 people, some of them 90 people in a week. You want to be remembered, so anything that's going to contribute to that is important. What about you?
Try to be, I'm always natural with stuff, when people walk in, I like to say hi, hey, how's it going? Greet myself with my coworker's name. I like to know their name as soon as we get settled and sat down. Especially on a new relationship, I have a few key points I always like to say, and it's I like to know about them, their objectives for this show, what they're looking for, and what is their timeline. When are you deciding? When are you finalizing? When is that hitting shelf? If they're a retailer.
In DC Day.
Yes, in DC Day. Because this will hit the basics that you need to know. You need to know what they're looking for, because you want to be direct with response, and you need to know the timeline, because you don't want to hit them away from the calendar, because we don't work so much ahead of time, we work within our schedules. Same with the buyers.
So you're setting the foundation there. You're finding out, once you have those elements from them at the opening of the conversation, it helps you guide the rest of the conversation.
Absolutely, because really, that's how you would respond. They'll tell you their voice, they'll tell you their needs, or if it's very general, they'll state it as well. They'll let you know what they're here for, and as well, you'll know timeline, so it'll be proper and information needed,
You should never be shy to ask questions. Asking probing questions is key.
Like what? Can you give us some examples?
A lot of what you just said. When are you finalizing? What is in the EC date? But probably the first question you should ask is, what are you looking for? And once they tell you what they came to the show for, then you can tailor your pitch to them.
Okay. How much data do you use? Do you put together some sales data from Nielsen, Circana, whatever, to have, even if you're not, maybe it's not part of your formal pitch, but to have ready?
In our history, we've done only a few times. I know some companies live off that. We've only done it a few times. We'll email them the data. We like to engage more naturally in our meeting.
Yeah.
So we try to go back and forth like that. Now, some of them do ask for it, so we kind of tell them, and we could always email on the spot. We have the information ready, though, that's for sure.
Gotcha. And you guys?
We use data, not too much of it. When we first started the company, we didn't use any data. I actually didn't even know what Nielsen data was. Mintel had no clue. We hired a regional sales manager that worked for J&J back in the day, and he kind of enlightened me to what Nielsen is and what all this data does and how it convinces buyers to buy a product. He actually couldn't believe that we're in all these retailers and we never present the data before. So we actually still don't have data. However, we do work with many brokers, and we're very fortunate that they provide the data for us when we meet with the buyers that they represent. So we still use it, but not crazy. As far as ECRM goes, you have 10 minutes, not that much time to show data. Our objective when we come to these shows with a new buyer is to get an hour appointment at their corporate office. It's impossible to make a sale within 10 minutes, no matter how good you are. So what we do is we try to get an appointment in their home office, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever we can get. Then do we show data if it's one of those customers that we know is going to want to see data.
So the goal of your meetings here
Always.
is to get the next meeting.
With the new buyers, always 1 hour meeting in person.
Yeah, gotcha. So you both touched on something a little bit earlier, which I think is really important for everybody to know. But first, just to let it on the data side, we do have on the prep site for the sessions in which Nielsen and Circana participate, we have their category data available to all the brands that are here. So you could go on it now, you can check it out. A lot of brands will use that data in their meetings or as part of it, or they have it handy. And then they also, for those of you on RangeMeet, you can also, if you're a premium or a pro subscriber, you have access to category level data as well, and competitive data that lets you know that it shows you the top 10 fastest growing products and the largest, the ones that are getting the most sales for your categories. And a lot of brands, when they find themselves in that, they use that as a selling point too. They're like, look, we're in the top 10 on RangeMeet. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't yet. So the other thing I want to bring up, and I've seen this a lot with brands that have been coming for a long time, and that's the fact that their meetings are a little more consultative. They're in brands when they've started with a few SKUs, like 3 in your case, and then all of a sudden they have 600 SKUs. It's like, how did you get there? Well, they got there through buyer conversations, right? Asking them, what do you need? Right after finding out the basics and engaging, they learn what the buyers need, and then what problems they have, and then they solve for those problems. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. What about feedback, right? Soliciting feedback on your products or your business with them.
Oh, you gotta be open-minded. You're not gonna like all the feedback. Some people are very sensitive. I say I'm thankful I was never sensitive. I was always very open to getting that feedback. The best feedback is the feedback you don't get, the feedback that's not positive. Because I feel that feedback gives a true perspective of that buyer for their customer. So our brand has evolved and our product variety has expanded because of a lot of that feedback. So we play in a lot of categories and we fulfill many needs because of that feedback. So it's definitely important.
I love constructive criticism. We had a customer that once called our office and said, your sheet mask, the nose was a little too small, the opening for the nose. And I'm thinking, does this person have a tremendous nose? I said, let me look into it. Sure enough, I looked into it and we said, you know what, maybe we could make the cutout a bit larger. So meeting with buyers and getting their feedback, regardless if it's good or bad, is phenomenal. We love that feedback. We have buyers that we actually will cat up an item, show it to them prior to manufacturing it, and they'll tell us, oh, it's beautiful, but change that word to that, change that font to that. I would invert these colors and I would change that to that, and we love it.
Excellent. I always say you should get one of 2 things out of every single meeting. Hopefully 2 things, but at least 1, right? 1 would be a follow-up that could lead to potential business. 2 is feedback that will help you make your business better. So you should at least get that from every single meeting that you have. And then if you can get both, that's just extra. Talk a little bit about the value and importance of transparency. Yes.
Always. Buyers now, again, lack of a better word, they can smell bullshit from a mile away. We got to where we are because we are honest, ethical businessmen. I have buyers that will walk into my showroom, pick up an item, and I'd say, no, put that down, that's not for you, I don't think that's for your customer. Take that item. They love that. When you're honest, it's all about honesty, everything.
Gotcha. You?
Transparency is key. It's very important to be clear about your capabilities, what you're able to do. You don't want to, how do you say it in better words? You don't want to overpromise. You know, you really want to be very clear with what you're able to do, how you're able to service the account. A lot of times buyers have expectations. Sometimes buyers have a few months. They give you ahead of time. Sometimes they give you a few weeks. Sometimes POs come in different forms and timelines. Just be very honest from day one. I think your word and your company's word and what you actually follow through with is gonna give you or break you in the short and long term, because then those buyers will trust you or they might not trust you.
Good, that's great. And yeah, it's important to be transparent on your capabilities, what they are and what your capabilities are not. If you can't do something, don't say, oh yeah, you know, don't get excited. I know everybody wants to be in 1,000 stores, whatever, but if you can't do it, you're better off saying, no, can't do it right now. I could start smaller, or we hold off until I can do it, and then you let them know. Always better to say no, turn down any business than to lie, because then if you get caught in that lie, you'll never get that reputation back. So it's always better to be transparent with everybody. So, how do you wrap up the meetings? And what's your advice to everybody here on how to wrap it up?
I always like to leave 2 minutes, at least 2 minutes for follow-up questions. Not just with ECRM, but with any meeting that I have with a buyer, I always like to end it with, okay, quick recap before I walk out, and I quickly run through. You said you wanted samples by when? Wednesday? Check. You wanted this done, quote sheets for this, quote sheets for that, done. This way, once I walk out that room, I know what I have to do. The buyer knows what she has to do.
Excellent.
Very similar. You want to summarize or kind of make sure you're going to follow through with whatever was discussed. Sometimes that discussion is, hey, it's not the right time, we could leave it for another time. Sometimes it's following up with certain samples, certain sheets, but you definitely want to make sure that whatever you wanted to follow up or questions within that meeting, make sure that those last few minutes, make sure it's covered. You know, buyers, sometimes they ask you a question. I know Joe's probably asked me a few questions here. I might have gone off topic.
That's right. No, I like when you guys want it.
But it might happen in the meeting, right? So make sure to answer all questions. Make sure to have your notes properly taken, because you're gonna have to follow up. And if you don't follow up, there's no opportunity. If you follow up, your chances of following up with great notes are gonna be better than following up with no notes. So
Perfect segue into the next section, follow-ups. And one thing that always baffles me is, you know, sometimes I talk to buyers and I would hear from them, oh, I met this brand and I talked to them, we had a great meeting, I asked them to follow up and they didn't. Which, I can't believe it when I hear that, but what is your overall philosophy on follow-ups, right? You get back from here, right? You had a great week, you get home, what do you start doing?
Follow-up. I like to follow up. Actually, funny you ask. When I said a few minutes ago, always leave 2 minutes at the end of the meeting to ask questions. One of the questions that I'd like to ask is, when would you like me to follow up with you? And based on that, that's when I do my follow-up. I know you're gonna ask, what if they don't answer? What's the next step?
How do you be pleasantly persistent?
Yeah. Pleasant, I like that word. Personally, I like to follow up once every 2 weeks. This way I feel like I'm not being such a pain in the butt, but I'm getting the message out there. I have friends though that will follow up every single week. I think my buyers like me because I'm not that pain in the butt, and I give them some space once they get back from a trade show, any trade show, to do all their follow-up work.
What kind of follow-up? Is it an email, is it a call, is it both, is it?
For me, it's always email.
Okay. And is it, do you bring something up? Are you asking them for something with each one, or maybe just letting them know something is?
Depending on how the end of the meeting went. So based on that, that's how I know exactly what to follow up with.
Okay.
Sometimes we like to include pictures of our booth in the email. If it's a new buyer, see attached pictures of our booth just to give you a better idea of, just to give them a reminder that they need it sometimes.
What is the longest, most amount of times you had to follow up with someone before they responded? Just kind of a level set for people here, what they can expect.
Go for
Either,
it.
okay.
So, man, you know, it's funny, I reached out to some buyers maybe 15 different times.
Yeah.
Not in the same, but I met them different shows, and when I got to my history, I was like, shit, I've reached out to them this many times. You don't know, the time, you know, when the right time happens. I'm not gonna email you 15 times from this one session, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up, I'll email you several times depending on what that engagement was, but as you meet them, you know, that number could exceed, but I've had accounts open up after that. There's still accounts, my numbers are a little higher.
Yeah.
I didn't get them yet, but hopefully we'll fish them out soon.
What about samples? Obviously, the buyer wants samples. What do you send, and how do you send them? Either, yeah, you can start.
Perfect. Back in the day when I had a lot more time on my hands, I would include the samples in the box along with a nice short but sweet letter with my business card, put it in, send it out, follow up with an email. Hey, samples are on the way, FedEx tracking number, yada, yada, yada. I'll follow up with you once you receive. Unfortunately now, not so much of it. I'll just throw the samples in the box, send it, follow up with an email. A lot of buyers that we do business with, they know right away when they open the box and they see Global Beauty Care or Spa-scriptions,
Yeah.
they know I send it. So I don't do as much as I used to do back in the day. when I
Okay.
first
Well, yeah, 'cause
started.
now they know you, and they know who you are, so. And you, same thing?
Well, by the way, I want to add something about their platform that's really good. There in the
Okay.
follow-up, there's a section because sometimes we
Tree's
follow-
very happy back there.
we actually follow up between a few team members sometimes, depending the event or show. And so there's a great section in the follow-up. You could do mark complete. There's also a good follow-up option. You could give your attachment, your note attachments on the same ECRM platform. So that's definitely a plus. So we do a combination. We do direct like that, then sometimes we do through our email. But we definitely follow up depending on the notes, with samplings, with your sheets, with whatever's needed, required. We try to get that out. Try to be timely about it. So knowing their timeline is very important. We don't send everybody right away. It depends when they asked or requested it. So we definitely follow according to our notes.
Okay, both of them touched on this. Again, the buyers are done. Ask the buyer how they want you to follow up, and do exactly that. Don't try, you know, if they ask, they say, send 5 boxes, send 5 samples, send 5 samples. Don't send 10. Do exactly what they say. So, when it comes to, and this is more of like to manage expectations of brands that are getting for the first time. Give us an example, right, from the time of meeting somebody here to the time getting on the shelf. Give us an example, contrasting ones, of what was the shortest time, and then what was the longest amount of time that it took? How long did you chase somebody before you got on the shelf?
Well, at the show, you're going to meet different types of businesses. You're going to meet opportunity buy and closeout businesses. You're going to meet planogram businesses, which are your chain retail supermarket stores. You're going to meet e-commerce and wholesalers. So typically, your e-com business, your opportunity closeout buyers, they could buy right away. A lot of times that buy comes in overnight. Sometimes it takes a few weeks, but they can buy on the spot. Your planogram, let's say your CVS's, your Walmart's, the smallest timeline I've had in one of those relationships, and it was very last minute, it was 4 months once. Typically, it could be up to 2 years. Even if they approve you, even if they approve you. So just know that there's expectation on a timeline. But even if they approve you, it's within 2 years timeline for sure it'll take, because the pharmacy chain, they're already working on a lot of late 24, 25 already working on it. I'm sorry, we're in 24, they're working on 26 already, 2026. So just understand that time frame.
Yeah, so just by the nature of it, the larger retailers, sometimes it's gonna take a lot longer. And then sometimes you're not gonna get them for that, you may have to wait another couple of years.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
same thing, you give us the shortest and the longest.
I couldn't have said it better than us. If you're meeting with an off-price retailer or a closeout buyer, yes, they can take goods yesterday if they wanted to. With planogram customers, it could be a year, possibly even longer than that. We had a buyer today that said, I just finalized. I'm not looking at it for another 8 months.
Yeah,
We do have other customers, so actually just today, I'll give you a great example. We have a buyer that attends the show that only buys closeouts from us. And every time I see her, I say, I want your everyday business. I want your everyday business. This morning I was relentless and I didn't give her a choice. And I said, what do you want to pay? And she told me this is what I want. I said, okay, if I agree to that price, you're gonna take these goods in every day. And she said yes. And she ordered 48,000 pieces on the spot.
But that's how it happens. I mean, and again, listening to the customer and really developing those relationships lets you do things like that. But it takes time. It takes, you've known them. How long did you know this? You've known them for a while.
I've known this wife for 6 years.
Okay. And yeah, and this happens sometimes. This happens. I just posted a blog on ECRM website where I asked somebody the same question, and the one customer he chased for 6 years before getting it, because similar things that you mentioned, planogram, he missed the planogram, the review, they just launched with another customer in the category, so he had to kind of let that run out. But
Sometimes the buyer changes.
The buyer
Every
changes,
buyer
yes.
doesn't want to touch anything,
Yeah.
she's getting used to the category.
yeah, so just to know that this happens, sometimes stuff happens, and it may postpone a deal that you knew you were gonna get, but just stay consistent, stay persistent. And so this one person I talked to, he had one deal, it took him 6 years to get. The other deal he got within 6 months, and it was a national retailer that happened to overhear his conversation during dinner at her dinner reception at this particular session. Wasn't even on his meetings, and got on the shelves within 6 months. So it's gonna vary, and you just, but that's why you're meeting with so many people, so you can stagger these things, and this way it keeps that steady. The long-term ones you approach one way, and you have the shorter-term ones, like the opportunity buys and e-commerce, where you can, go a little quicker on that. So, all right, after the deal, products are on the shelves. How do each of you support sales for the retailers, whether it's social media, promotions, things like that?
Mostly promotions.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know much of social media. I have an Instagram account, I haven't posted a picture in 10 years, but through promos. Promos are expensive, however, it does pay off in the long run. When you start selling a retailer, this is your benchmark, you run a promo, right away your sales trigger up. Promo is over, you go back down, but you don't go back down to where you originally were. You go back down a little bit from that peak, then you run another promo, and then you go back up, and then again, back down. So we love doing promos. As much as it costs us a lot of money, you always get a reorder right after that. That makes up for the money that we spent on the promo. You should have, just mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, study the retailer and what the cost of doing business is. So for example, besides for participating in promos, you need to know if they have any slotting fees. You need to know who pays shipping. You need to know if you're responsible for any new store allowance or renovating stores. If you have to pay a broker fee or commissions, you need to build that into your cost. Some retailers charge $10,000 for slotting. That may sound like a lot of money, believe it or not, it's actually very little. We have retailers that charge close to $200,000 per SKU for their stores. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Awesome. Well, I know you're active on Instagram. So is that part of your?
It's definitely part of the brand. I think there's companies that obviously do it way better than us. I think we're doing a good job. We could obviously always do better. We do a combination. We participate within the store, promoting. We participate socially. We also do a lot of different consumer events where we do a lot of giveaways. So we do a lot of, we promote in different angles, direct to a consumer, to try to get them to visit the store, because at the end of the day, it's important to make sure your product has velocity in that store. If your product enters that account, that distributor, or that retail store, it does not move through that store. It's going to be a lot more costlier to lose that than it is to do some investment in advertise that.
Gotcha. Last two questions, because I know we got to wrap up. We have another one, another presentation coming at 5. So, what would you say, each of you, what would you say are the biggest challenges that brands will face over the coming 6 months, year, and what can they do now to kind of hedge against it?
I have to say, finding the white space within your category. I know we spoke about it earlier, but finding the white space and offering something that's innovative, something that they don't currently have, is the hardest thing ever. So one thing that we can differentiate ourselves with is, like I mentioned earlier, on pricing, on quality, and on design.
Thanks. You?
I'm sure most of the businesses that are here now promoting their brand probably already have some ongoing business. What I'd say is the crowd that comes out here, most of them are the bigger players. A lot of them are respectful, or bigger companies, bigger brands. So you gotta make sure you have some sort of sales occurring outside of this market per se. And that could be from simple e-commerce companies that come here. You gotta make sure you have some revenue coming in. Don't rely on this retail chain planogram business to happen overnight. As you heard, some of it takes 2 years. And also know it doesn't happen overnight, so ECRM is a great event. I'm not saying it because I'm here, but honestly, if we came to one event and stopped, we would have missed out on a lot. Because that customer, they come off one event, and they come off 2 events, came off few events. So we've done a lot of events here with the ECRM team. We do a lot of different trade show events. Go through your list and see what type of companies are coming out here. And just know if you didn't get that business in the first try, just know that they and others come out here. To be consistent is to be reliable, you know, to make sure your face is out here. And that'll bring you that business.
You know, I'm glad you said that. That story that I mentioned that's on the ECRM blog right now, it was a company that 10x'd this business over the course of 10 years, coming to ECRM sessions. And his first quote was, "I didn't do it for my first or my second session." It was coming consistently over the years where he built up those relationships, got the feedback, learned what the problems are, figured out how to solve them, and in doing that was able to expand into new categories, new areas of growth.
We've been coming to this session, my batch says, I believe, 22 sessions, and yours says 75. Wow, impressive. If this wasn't a good show, we wouldn't still be coming back.
I'm taking a video later, we're gonna make a whole bunch of testimonial clips.
I would love it.
So, all right, last question. Last question. What advice would each of you give your younger selves when you were starting out? Knowing what you know now and experience you have now, what would you tell your younger self?
I'm gonna have to say to work for a different company before you start your own company. This way you learn, like Osman mentioned, you know, you need to know what an EDI is, what work smart is, what all this lingo, this jargon of business. Learn that somewhere else, and then once you have all your ducks in order, then you start your own.
Excellent.
I wish I would have done everything sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to be honest, sometimes you delay yourself, you might delay your company. Don't do it, you know, keep pushing forward, just being consistent. You'll probably outpace most of the companies out here in the market. Just don't give up. Just gotta be out there, gotta be hungry. Go.
So is 12 years old a good age to start?
You know, it's funny, I saw this guy coming down the escalator. I told him, hey, you look sharp. I didn't realize he was part of the event.
He's one of the brands here.
Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. And anybody have any questions? We have a few minutes for Q&A.
Okay, you talked about finding the white space, filling in the gaps, trying to find what they need. That implies that you've got the capability to create a lot more SKUs. Is that the only way to get in with some of these?
I wouldn't say it's the only way, but it's definitely a way to get in with them. What do you think?
Unless you already have the item they need, you know, you gotta make sure you give them something different. You don't wanna, there's 10 water bottles out there, you're gonna come out with the same water bottle, you know, you need to hit the white space. Either you already have the white space, or you gotta give the white space, or rephrase it on your package, on your product, but you have to give it. You know, people right now is gonna switch over for the same, you know, they need to find a void. It needs to be a void.
Very competitive right now in any industry that you go in. We, for example, we're going to London in 2 weeks to store shop in London. Why London? Sometimes trends come out there before they come here. So we go get data from there and we bring it over, and we might see, you know, this packaging has velvet on it. Why don't we do something with velvet packaging? Make it look very upscale, even though it's at an affordable price. So you gotta do a lot of homework, a lot of research, not easy.
Well, I wanna add something, to be honest. So, even our company, we felt we were very confident, oh, this variety we have not. The buyer gave the feedback, but we're gonna still try, we're gonna keep pushing. We were still pushing it for many years, so we gave up on that. So meaning, sometimes that feedback They're giving it to us. We cannot, we shouldn't be deaf or blind to that feedback. We need to make sure, at least take proper feedback back, you know, if that's one buyer, but see what the general group is saying out there. Yeah, everybody has their limitations, but to get the business, you know, you gotta figure it out. Like, figure out that void for sure.
Sometimes you can create the white space, do something that no one's doing yet.
Exactly.
What's an example of that?
We were at a retailer, he has a massive skincare set, and believe it or not, he didn't have one serum in his entire planogram. Why? I have no idea. I looked and I said, you must order these 4 serums, and a couple of months from now, his planogram is gonna have a reset, and he's gonna have only 4 serums on his floor, but they're all from my company.
So, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit of a risk, but, you know, as long as you're exploring and you know, you have a knowledge of what's going on in that category, maybe something comes up and you can fill that spot.
Yeah.
So, any questions? All right, well, thank you guys a lot.